Wow, we have a pretty full house here, and I think I just violated the first rule, is that I did not silence my phone. So that means that, one, there are people who do not consult my calendar. And two, you guys are more important. So welcome. I am Leroy Chapman with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and it is a pleasure for me to be here. And Katharyne and I are going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I know you may deal with in managing people and recruiting talent and making sure that we as bosses do what we want to do, which is to get the best out of people. And so we will start our conversation. So Katharyne, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So I guess the first Atlanta thing is, how was the traffic today?
You can tell by the rumble in the room. So for those that are remote, there was some traffic happenings this morning, but we're all here. And again, thanks for inviting me to be part of such a meaningful conversation. I'm probably not alone in the room knowing I don't have the answer. That's why we're all here. But I think each of us have part of an answer, and that's why there's so much value in this dialogue.
Yes, great. So thanks. So we'll get right into it. So the biggest news story probably of my lifetime was the pandemic. And that's saying something considering all of the big news stories of all of our lifetimes. There's nothing bigger than that. So you've talked about the workplace disruption and the uncertainty in recent years and how none of that is really going away soon. So when it comes to employee experience, talk a little bit about how you engage people, how you enforce your values, those things.
Yeah, I think I've come to appreciate that no matter the backdrop, there's three things that hold true in elevating and driving a better employee experience. One is transparency, the next is autonomy, and the third is recognition. And we sit here in 2024 today, and I can remember 2020. And I remember saying to myself, I just need to get through 2020, or saying to my team, let's just get through 2020. And then you come around and the pandemic is still raging in 21. And then you come to natural disaster, you come to threat of war, and then actual war, and then inflation. And that means recession's coming, and recession didn't come, but more inflation, so now it must come. And so it's sort of no matter what is coming at us, how can we best serve our population? Because what we've come to appreciate we can't do is brace against the unknown and specifically increase capability for a workforce against a disruption that we're not clear on what it is yet. But we can lean into the things that serve no matter what. And I think this sense of transparency and employees feeling like they have full access to information and context in the why, that I feel the autonomy to be in the driver's seat and be making decisions for things that are specific to me and my career growth or my family situation. And when I reference recognition, I don't so much mean on a stage and receiving a trophy, but really that sense of I'm seen for the individual that I am, and that's fully sort of validated and recognized in the employee process.
That's awesome. So just to recap, transparency, autonomy, recognition.
It's like he's a reporter.
Well, and I would write that down. I mean, that is something that I think crystallizes some of the challenge too, because all of us have to deal with, distant work, remote work, and that kind of thing. But as a follow-up, what does recognition look like? Because you say it's not on a stage, and of course that's impractical. But what's the practical approach to making sure that people feel seen and recognized?
So I think recognition and being specific around behaviors or goals and markers, those are cultural icons for many companies, including the Coca-Cola Company. But the spirit of broadening that definition to, again, that my unique individuality is recognized and how I can contribute to this place of work and this space of community. Sometimes we talk about values and sometimes the application of them is easier to bring them to life. So I would give the career framework that we launched about 2 years ago as a good illustration of how to bring these three staples to life. This framework we refer to as Thrive. And in the delivery of that, we've tried to be very transparent about not only the tools and the resources we have for each of us as employees to drive a career in the company, but also what good looks like. What are the leadership behaviors that are valued? What are the technical skills needed for different paths? On the autonomy piece, we've put our employees in the driver's seat with some really meaningful tools to help them effectively navigate what that career path looks like. But to your point on the recognition piece, is that I can see my individual version of fulfillment or career growth reflected in that framework. We've done a lot of listening across the past couple years, but certainly as it relates to how to set people up for success. And that's, I think, where that recognition piece really, really pulls through.
Okay, that's great. So you touched on one of the things that Coke is doing with their Thrive Career Network. Also, in that vein, you're having to make sure you're equipping all of your people leaders with everything they need to make sure that those values are enforced, and also too that people have a clear path. So talk a little bit about the guidebooks and the training that you've developed in order to make sure your managers are equipped.
I think first it comes with defining career, and a lot of times we talk about career growth. And our reflex with that is vertical ascension, right? Now, this is absolutely my association. Right now in the Gabriel household, my 11-year-old son shared with me this weekend, he's only 2 inches away from hitting mom's height, which, as you saw me walk up to stage, is not like a big accomplishment, but it is a concerning one. But we always hear growth and we think more, bigger title, bigger remit, and that isn't what the growth aspiration is for everyone. I often substitute the word fulfillment. What does career fulfillment look like for me as an employee or you as an employee? And so broadening out this career framework has been important to make sure we can meet the needs of those who would like to expand their remit and their title and their earning potential. But there's a large percent of the population that would like to deploy their expertise in a new way, with a new team, or to mentor others and share those experiences and those technical skills. And another group who would like to learn new skills, adjacent skills maybe to the job that they're in. And so we've started with broadening out, how do we define a career? And how do we then make sure that we're meeting all individuals, we're recognizing and seeing what it is they're looking to get out of the Coca-Cola company. And with that comes a pairing of manager tools. And one of the tools that I think I've found the most positive feedback from has been a very simplistic guide that empowers managers not to be the expert. You know, if I have a colleague that comes to me and says, I love human resources and I love this bit of employment marketing, and I actually desire to move into the brand organization and lead Sprite, I'm not equipped to be the expert in that, but I can be the expert in facilitating the conversation of how we leverage the network and how we leverage learning opportunities and what critical experiences might be valuable to help lead to that path. But that's a big release for managers, not to have all the answers, but to know they are accountable, to be able to facilitate the conversation and lead colleagues to resources that helps them get to their version of fulfillment.
Excellent. So question, how many employees Coca-Cola right now?
So,
thereabouts?
Yeah, in our whole system, 800,000 across the globe. So this includes our bottling network. So we have a lot of careers to help support.
800,000, my goodness. Okay. So basically then you have employees that here, and if you're from Atlanta, that's about the size of Cobb County, which is a lot. In fact, if we were ranking that as Georgia counties, that'd probably be the 3rd largest county in Georgia behind Fulton and Gwinnett. So that's a lot of employees. So given that, how with all of those employees do you connect, their pathway, their interests, their skill set to the overall mission of Coke and its business objectives and its values?
So we are very proud of our company purpose, which is to refresh the world and make a difference. And there are many ways that we're able to then draw our employees in to help them find connection in career and connection in community. I have to share, though, most have a very strong connection with the brand. And that's not a Coke-owned item either as an employee. I'll share mine, and then Leroy, I'm going to ask if you happen to have one. So,
Okay.
I remember as a 6-year-old child, my mother was a school teacher where I attended school. And so every morning we would ride together in her Pontiac station wagon, like with the wood paneling. I don't know if any of you had this family car as well. And she would drive through McDonald's to get a fountain Diet Coke. Now, every morning she would turn around to me in the back seat and say, "'Cause it just tastes better." And she would also say, "And don't tell your dad." Because obviously we had 2 liters at home and cans at home, and this was not the most economical or efficient way to get her morning caffeine. But as a 6-year-old child, that was a neat moment every day and a secret that my mom and I kept from my dad over her Diet Coke of the day. We find these stories replete in our organization. The way that our employees show up with a connection and passion for our brand. But we talk about our purpose is to refresh the world, not just refresh our own employees, and how we drive those special moments. So Leroy, I have to ask now, have you thought of perhaps a connection to the Coca-Cola magic?
Oh, absolutely. So there's a couple of things with Coke. I mean, one, I grew up in South Carolina, right? So we are sort of the battleground. So think about politics, right? We're a battleground state. So we're actually right in the middle of Georgia and Coke in North Carolina and that other Pepsi. I'm sorry. So we are basically the battleground, right? So it's funny because if you're in South Carolina, that is a conversation because we would get all of this marketing and you had this loyalty and we were sort of seen as an area that they're both sort of fighting over. And so it's funny because I was in a Coke household. And then Pepsi came out with a Pepsi when I was a teenager that was blue. So we experimented with this blue, I forgot what it was. Anyway, it was a blue Pepsi, and that was sort of the thing. And it was kind of messy, and it stained your clothes, all that stuff. So it actually affirmed sort of my loyalty back
Serves
to
you
Coke.
right, Leroy.
I know, right? So I go from the battleground state of either or, right? And then I get here, and it is, of course, solidly Coke. You can't even say the word you can't even speak the name of the other competitor, right? So now, as I travel, one of the things though that affirms it too, that Coke is so intertwined with the identity of Georgia and Atlanta, is that it always comes up. It's Coke, and so it's global. And so wherever I go, Coke is the home team, and people mention that, and that's a touch point. So that's kind of it. Grew up in that battleground area where I kind of got my Coke allegiance, but here it is nothing other than that. So great. Well, look, I want to ask you this too, because this is, I guess, in the times that we're living in, as we talk about all of your 800,000 employees. We've got our issues with diversity and equity and belonging. And I know that's been part of Coke's identity for a long, long time. So talk a little bit about that, because there are big discussions about it among all businesses, including mine. I sit here and we do not have 800,000 employees. That is just extraordinary. But I do, I'm in a newsroom, and I have a couple of hundred employees. And as you might imagine, this is an issue for us as we talk about how effective can we be if we don't value making sure that we've got representation across the demographic spectrum of who we are.
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, Coca-Cola has been at this for a long time, 137 years to be exact. And we're looking to live this purpose for another 137 years. So the 800,000 employees between the company and our bottling partners are dispersed in 200 markets across the globe. And we know it's imperative that we represent the markets that we're serving in order to continue to stay in front of the consumer needs. We aim to create equal opportunities for our employees in order to meet that growth mission for the company. We're constantly striving to create that inclusive environment for the reasons we've touched on in the conversation to date. Like, how do we make sure people are set up to bring their individual self, see themselves in the fabric of this company, see a career that serves them and their families? And we have been clear about our ambitions to mirror the workforce that we serve. What this looks like is being 50% female-led by the year 2030. In the United States, it looks like representing race and ethnicity per census data. And we're encouraged about the progress that we're making. Currently, our board of directors is 50% female. Our executive leadership team, 50% female, and our North America operating unit, led by our first female president, Jennifer Mann, 50% female. So we'll continue to make progress, and we'll continue to share this progress in our business and sustainability reports.
Great, excellent. So as we talk about diversity and demographics, one of the things I think that's a concern for all of us is age, because we have a workforce for many of us that's getting a little older. And as we think about the pipeline of workers that are coming in, they are different. They have different expectations and certainly different points of view. So talk a little bit about what Coke does in that vein, because honestly, any employer is looking to hire the next. So in hiring the next and making sure that the next comes in, feels valued, and those three things you mentioned, how does that work with those?
Sure. I'll go to a specific example, back to the career and the application of those values. I mean, one, I think the pandemic has helped us to get really focused and prioritize on listening and appreciate the value of listening. And so we've checked ourselves not to make assumptions about what the workforce entering wants or doesn't want and how different are they from this generation, but we ask. And one of the things we've been clear on is a connection to our purpose, a way to live our purpose before potentially they're in senior leadership roles with decision-making remits and larger impacts. Volunteerism has been a great marker for this earlier generation workforce. So we've responded. We have increased our paid volunteer time off. Again, we want to be transparent that this is something we value, make it not just permissible, but encouraged. In November and December of this past year, we hosted our second Kindness is Refreshing campaign. Again, broadening out volunteerism could be small random acts of kindness that are refreshing that world and making a difference. Or as my team went to the food bank and had a day of service in that regard. So we've created campaigns and platforms in order to find those opportunities, and certainly encouraged sharing internally and celebrating that aspect of being part of the Coca-Cola Company.
Well, Katharyne, we are out of time, unfortunately, but I appreciate that, and we will leave with one really quick question. The best leadership advice you've ever gotten in one sentence?
Ooh, whoa. I think the concept of showing up to be your authentic self, that takes the least amount of energy. It keeps a colleague or a leader focused on their day, and also invites feedback on how they can be most effective.
Right. Show up, be your authentic self. I love it. Mine is this: spend the money. All right. All right, we thank you very much. And look, you guys have a great conference. We appreciate the opportunity here. And I think we may be around just for a little bit, but I think we're out of time, and they're about to give us the Oscar music to shove us off the stage. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great.